and record.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Harry, and welcome to Harry's very first show on Inclusive FM. This is my very first show, and we're going to enjoy it today. And I'm sure that you will want to join me in enjoying this. Some very basic information that I would like to share with you. If you like my show, please send an email to Harry, spelled H-A-R-I, at inclusivefm.co.uk. Number of things that are today wonderful here in Edmonton. It's very sunny out there, which is good. I'm not the weatherman, but I just came out from outside and I know that it's sunny. So there you go. Now today, the 2nd of March 2015. This show here, I'm going to talk about 3 primary items. One is the events and the festivals of this week. 2, the introduction of religion. And 3, the horoscopes and astrology. Now, when it comes to events and festivals, everybody knows what I'm talking about. But when I get to religion, and you probably switch off, please don't. Because religion is something that has got many people turn away. I'm going to show you a totally different aspect of religion when it comes to it. So, look for it, wait for it. Very shortly we will get there. And we will get to the horoscopes and introduction to that as well. Just before we start with this week's event, starting from today, the Monday, I just introduce what happened yesterday. Yesterday, I'm sure many of you know, was St. David's Day. A wonderful day for Welsh people. But those Welsh people, would you believe, they did not get the holiday they wanted. I wish they do. And I'm sure all the Welsh people out there want that day as a holiday. I did not stop it. Tony Blair stopped it last time it was requested. Hopefully the future Prime Minister will listen to you. So keep your momentum going. Now yesterday also was an important day in the Hindu religion, being the 11th day of the month. And I'll talk more about it on the next 11th day. But that suffices here. Now we get to this week. And this week has got some very, very good news for a lot of people. One, primarily the Jewish community. The Jewish community has got this festival coming up, Purim Festival. Purim Festival, here in UK, many Jewish communities mark this as the date to remember the Jewish people's deliverance from the royal death decree around the 4th century BCE. And as mentioned in the book of Esther, it's usually celebrated on the 14th day of the Adar in the Jewish calendar, sort of around February, March area, in the present English Gregorian calendars. Now, what happens in this festival is absolutely wonderful. The background of it, let me go through a little bit of background of it, and what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to show you a picture and you'll recognize it. All you football guys will recognize it straight away. I'll just bear with me. Look at it. Look at this picture. Can you see it? Right. Do you recognize that? Now that is the picture, what you call Rattler. But actually the proper name for it is Gregors. The proper name for it, Gregors, is the popular noisemaker. And it's the noise is because of the decree, that because of the freedom, because of the liberation. So the next day after that was a holiday, and to date it is still a holiday for the Jewish people. This comes up this coming Thursday on the 5th of March. Now, very important day for them. And all these rattlers will be coming out in all the Jewish areas. A public holiday. They enjoy it with lots of food, lots of drink, and lots of enjoyment. Purim commemorates the time when people living in Persia were saved from the extermination by the courage of Jewish woman called Esther. And hence the reason why even today they celebrate. Next is two events coming up in the Hindu religion. That is called Holi and Dhuleti. Holi is where the fire is lit, a very big fire is lit, and people surround. This fire signifies the destruction of evil. It also signifies that the winter time that has just passed and the spring and the summer are on their way, and for all the winter time what happens, you and I both know, is that the disease and the illnesses take place in the households with the cold. The insects don't want to go out, and they all reside within the warmth of your blankets and your households and everywhere else. Nowadays, not so much, but in the olden days, very much so, especially when people used to snuggle up together around a little small area. So this fire then destroys all this disease from the houses. And the next day is the Dhuleti, is the enjoyment of the colors. The colors, powdered colors, is thrown all over to everyone to enjoy. There is another story that goes with it really, but we will go into it at some other time. In my storytelling times, there are going to be storytelling situations coming, especially for the children as well. I'm sure children will love that type of story, and they will want to listen to my show. The show here, Harry's show, is very important for everyone of all ages. And there, my dear friends, the time now is just gone past 8 minutes past 3 o'clock. Now, the next subject that we are going to be talking about, and before we do that, anybody and everybody who wants to get in touch with me is very simple. Harry, that's HARI, at inclusivefm.co.uk. Now, so please rush your emails through. Now, the introduction of religion was the second part of my situation that we spoke about. What religion really is, let me explain that to you. What you know of religion, and I talk to a lot of people, and as soon as I say I'm into religion, they turn around to me and say, not interested. I don't believe in religion. I don't. And there's all kinds of things come to me. They throw at me all the way. There are a few people who believe in it, and others say, I don't. You know, it's like you cannot believe in a lot of things because you do not see it. So how come you believe in air that you're breathing? Well, you can't see it, so you shouldn't be believing in air either, should you? The religion here is not about destruction. It's not about who said what. The religion here is what, in my view especially, is not a dictatorial bump that is given out by some of the organizations, but it is how we would like to be treated, is how we should treat others, is in itself a religion. The lead to our behaviors, to our values, and to know our destiny. That is religion. We will talk more about our destiny in a very short time. Our destiny, many people think rich or poor, smart or ugly. In their own minds they may be, but to me, everyone is smart. Now, destiny, they think, is something that comes with your birth. No, it does not. Destiny, although it comes with you, there is a way around it. There is a way that explains to you what your destiny is. There is a way that explains to you what you should and should not do, or how you should do. Let me give you an example. Before the times of sat-navs, what did people do? They looked at their A to Z, open the pages, go through the index and say, right, that's where I want to go. Look at the map and say, right, okay, hit it. Hit the road and go to the destination. Do they reach there? Of course they do. But long-winded way, every so often, look at that book, follow the road and go through and go. And before you know it, somewhere they get stuck in the traffic jam. But they don't have an alternative way. They follow that, because that's what that A to Z said. Or that's what their mind says, that we got to follow this because we don't know this area and don't want to get lost in the one-way system or a no-through road system somewhere along the line. Now the sat-nav has come in, and what sat-nav is showing you, a good decent sat-nav will show you that, look, there is a possibility of a traffic jam ahead, so we're going to take a diversion. Sure, you will reach a little bit late, but it will still be earlier than you otherwise get stuck in the traffic jam. That is your destiny, to reach there in time or around same time. It is a way forward, but unless and of course you know where you're going, it's going to be difficult for you to. So sat-nav knows where you're going and it tells you. But if that road also has got problems, what does sat-nav do? And I can tell you what happens, because the other day I was coming through from South London, and Brackwell Tunnel last Thursday before last had a big problem. I had 4 hours on the radio. It says 4 hours of traffic jam. So it diverted me onto the Woolwich Ferry. Guess what? Every other sat-nav diverted every other person to Woolwich Ferry. By the time I got there, I was stuck in the traffic jam all over again. But now, the Woolwich Ferry is only one ferry going backwards and forwards. What do? You sit in that traffic jam, or you get out of the traffic jam, come back again onto Blackwall Tunnel. I said, right, slowly does it, but we'll get there. So sometimes sat-navs get it wrong as well. But there you go. You know, there is a way for everything. Not the right way, but there is a way. And that is known as horoscopes. And that is what our next topic is, what I'm going to talk to you about. Let's talk about horoscopes in slightly different way. Let me explain to you horoscope, what it actually means. Now, you've seen in the newspapers, in the media, and many people, you read those things that says, I only work by my horoscopes. What it says, I will work by it. And then there's other people who say, I don't believe it. And the other people who read it and say, that's not me, is it? And sometimes you think, was it worth it reading that? Was it really worth it? But don't forget, there are only 12 zodiac signs. And there are millions and millions of people divided in that 12 zodiac signs. Now, where do we go from here? How do we differentiate from that? And that is where Vedic horoscopes come in. The Gregorian horoscope divides into 12 monthly zones, and that is the solar based, whereas the Vedic is lunar based, and we will explain as we go along. Let me show you a picture first, and we go from there. Now this is the picture of the sun eclipse. Did you know that the sun's eclipse is going to be there on the 20th of March this year? Now that is going to go through just around the side of Greenwich. And Britain is way down there, and we will very unlikely that we will see any part of that solar eclipse if we get to it. Although it comes within the 80%, we are not likely to see it because it's at 9:30 in the morning. Depending on the weather as well, if it's rainy or cloudy, you will not see it at all anyway. So that is there. Now this picture here shows you in more clarity the path, the way the solar eclipse is going to happen. And the blue mark shows the line in which it is going to be most effective. Now, what that has got to do with it is something that is very, very important for us to learn. Now, you see that picture there? Where the sun, let me bring that picture alongside so you can see it properly, compare it properly. Okay. See, that sun there is there, marked Ravi. Okay? Now, the eclipse part of it is that bit there, Ketu. Now, let me explain that in more detail to you. There are, in the zodiac sign, there are 7 planets that are shown. And in those 7 planets, along with 2 imaginary planets. So there's the Earth, and the Sun rotates, or let's say the Sun doesn't rotate around the Earth, but it feels like it. Let's say Earth is static in one place, and therefore Sun rotating like so. Where actually the Sun is sitting there and the Earth is rotating, but that's the same effect when we take the Earth static and the Sun moving. Now, so therefore it moves in that direction. But the Moon moves in the same direction, but from lower end to the upper end, as opposed to the Sun from the upper end to the lower end. So the 2 points coming there are the 2 imaginary points where they're going to cross over. Of course, with the distance, the Sun being so far away and the Moon being closer to Earth, or the other way when the Moon is on this side and the Sun further down. So what happens there is one is solar eclipse and the other is the lunar eclipse. And that is what this dark one here are. They are directly opposite each other because that is directly opposite where the Sun and the Moon cross over, and that is when the eclipse happens. Now in this particular instance, at that particular time, let me get back to this. At that particular time, apart from the Sun and the Moon, there is also Uranus and Mars in that lining. Now, therefore, these 4 planets, they are hidden from the Earth's direct view, as we can see in this map here. That causes us the problem. So we'll come back to this in a minute, and now let me explain to you the issues with the Sun and the Moon. Did you know that we all suffer with the effects of the Sun and the Moon? When the Sun sets and the darkness falls upon us, invariably, unless you're working nighttime, people want to go to sleep. In the daytime, with the sunrise, even the birds start to wake up and start to make noises and go about their lives. Animals go about their lives. We go about our lives. But as soon as the darkness comes in, 24 hours, and we're back into the same situation. Now, if we take that as what happens with the sun, now the moon. There is a new moon and there is a full moon. The new moon is when everything is settled down. Even the seas and the oceans, the waters in there are fairly calm. They are not making too much of waves. You don't see many waves at that time, but you see a lot of waves. And you see a lot of disturbance and a lot of wind with a full moon. The high tide happens around the full moon. Women have their monthly cycles around the full moon. So you see, the effect of sun and the moon is already happening to us, whether we like it or not. Now, similarly, there are other planets that create environment and create situations within our body that causes us to behave in certain fashion. There are 12 different ways in which this happens. They are categorized into 12 different ways, the 12 zodiac signs. Now, on the lunar, because there's 28-day cycle, it's 28 and few hours on top actually. So therefore, this 12 zodiac signs in the lunar basis is divided, and it's roughly 2¼ days each. So therefore, your horoscopes based on that is much more to you than what it is on a monthly part of it. Now, I hope you understood that so far, and I hope that you're following me so far. If not, I'm sure you will email me on Harry, Hari, at inclusivefm.co.uk. Don't forget. Also, get on our Facebook and like us, because the more likes we get, the more encouragement we get in order to present to you and produce this and much more informative shows to you. They can keep coming on to you. Next time along, I will introduce to you the prominent members of this organization, and we will even be in those hard work that they have put together to get the likes of me, given the opportunity to the likes of me to get on this. I was hoping this was going to be happening when Channel 5 came on television, because that's what Channel 5 was supposed to do, bringing the ethnic minority into the mainstream. But somewhere along the line, it got carried away. The only thing that we see nowadays is just repeat programs and repeat programs. Hopefully, we will not have repetitions going in and out. Of course, if you want to watch this, you can watch it on the archive again. At the end of the day, it's there for you to see it all over again and understand it. Now, we come back to this, and this is what horoscope is about. This tells me what is happening with, because the moon is in this part. You can see it's not prominent as the other bit here. The imaginary line is coming there in very dark writing, whereas this is not coming in dark writing. If we look at this, the Venus, it is with the underline. That it means that it is in the wrong place, and that creates a havoc. in our lives. This moon here, moon is our mind. It plays with our mind. And this section here, the triangle here, it causes, if that was somewhere else and moon was there, that person would be very fortunate. He'd be very fortunate because he would be a very popular person. But because of the eclipse on that day, on 20th of March, that person born will have very less of self-confidence, will have little bit in terms of personal belief, make lots of friends, but there will be time and moment when one word out of order and he will lose that friendship, and that will continue for a long time. And if we take that further along, Saturn down there in the married life is in its own house giving a lot of help. So when that person, he or she, gets married, it's going to be totally different life altogether. They will not recognize it. Their friends will be flooding in, their income will be flooding in, and the support from the spouse will be incredible. You could do lots, and you can win lots. This here is the only one that will break you. But because of that support, and a very strong one as that, because as we know, apart from Jupiter, which is sitting over there, Saturn is the next one in line for being the biggest planets around. And it gives that oomph, that ego, that advance from the spouse for us to get somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason I'm explaining this is because when I turn around to you in time to come as to explain to you what your horoscope is today or for this week, you will then be able to understand where I get your information from. Now, in this particular instance, if I just move that, and that 3 there comes over to there, so therefore all that changes, that goes into that box, and that goes into that box. That changes to a different person altogether, from one zodiac sign to the other zodiac sign on that week. That is how this system works. Let me explain this a little bit more to you in a slightly different way. Let us say that the imaginary line was here and here. The Rahu and the Ketu, this is a part of the body, this is the head, and this is the rest of the body. So if that was here, that means the body is separated. A divorce with that person is imminent. Arguments in the house are imminent. Tell me something. Just raise your hand. Not that I can see you, but just raise your hand. Did you have an argument in the last week? Yes or no? Well, if you did, is it on a regular occurrence? Well, that could be the reason. Are you without one of your parents? Or you don't get along with one of your parents? That could be because these two are sitting opposite in this direction. So there's lots of things that can tell me about you, about the individual. Now, working on this basis, so horoscope is just not telling you today is a fantastic day, the sun is shining and you're going to have a wonderful day, or no, you're going to have a lousy day. No, it tells me about finances. In this particular instance, there's nothing in this finances, in this section here. It tells me about your wife or your spouse, her husband. It tells me about your work ethics, how much money you're going to make, or you're likely to make. And if you're not making, why aren't you making? Because this is stopping you. Now, how do you get around that? Is what we'll talk about at some time in future. Ladies and gentlemen, the time now just past 3:30, and we are now to halfway down the program. I was anticipating a 2-hourly program, but today, being my very first show and a little bit over enthusiastic, I wasn't sure how much have I prepared, or have I prepared more than necessary, less than necessary. So I thought if I work on the basis of 1 hour, and then depending on your responses, we will take it to 2 hours. Don't forget, this is on a prolonged basis, so we will work on that basis and see how we go. Put your emails down, send your emails. In future, I will have email on my laptop here, so that if there is one coming up live, we will be able to talk to you. Did you know what else horoscopes can do? I'll tell you. Horoscopes, if you have only just started, many people nowadays, a lot of people nowadays, because the only reason I say a lot of people is because I see a lot of website addresses to find a mate, to find a friend, to find somebody that you can spend the rest of your life with you. How do you know that that person is the most compatible person for you? Well, I can tell you. If your movement and my movement and their movements are matching. No two horoscopes are same, but if that with the underline was in a darker position directly opposite here, there is a good possibility that your mating would be much better, because that support from there is going to give you that what it needs to have a prolonged life together. There is just not one issue. There's lots and lots of issues. How do we get round to the arguments? You've now already been married, or you're already along the way with a partner. It's too late for you to now do the matchmaking because you've gone past that stage. What do you do now? Well, I can look it up and I can say to you, without you telling me what's wrong. I mean, can you imagine going to the doctor, right? You go to the doctor and say, "Doctor, I'm hurting myself." And the doctor says, "Where are you hurting?" It is, "I don't know where I'm hurting, doctor. Please find out for me." You know what the doctor is going to say? "Here's a couple of paracetamol. Go and enjoy yourself. Have some sweet and enjoy yourself." Here, it tells me where you are going wrong. What are the likely causes within which your household, your friends, you are suffering, and for what reason? Almost to the point. How to get round that. So it's more like that sat-nav that tells you how to get to the place. Sometimes there is more than one ways, in which case we try one. If it doesn't work, we try the other. But that matchmaking is done by these horoscopes. How do we know these horoscopes? I need just 2-3 small, simple information from you. But I'll talk about that side of it when we get to it in a little bit of time. But for now, what I would like you to do now is very simply this. All right? Get on the Twitter at inclusive FM and send us a Twitter. That's another way of getting in touch with us. Now, we can do a lot of other things. In time, I will have a phone line going here. If the response is good, we can have a phone line going. But this is my first show. Only you can tell me how it's going. Only you can send me that email on Hari, Hari, at inclusivefm.co.uk. It's very simple. That is me, Hari. And that is the most wonderful thing here about this horoscopes. Now, let us take one step further into the horoscopes. We have gone so far into explaining to you where, in the example that I brought in about the eclipses, about the sun, about the moon, about the other stars, and all that. So, what does it do, the effect to us? Imagine for a minute. The sun wasn't there at all, full stop. Imagine for a minute the moon wasn't there, or one of the other planets was. It's not something which the colonials brought in to say once upon a time there was one thing and something hit it and boom, everything fell apart and there's the earth and we're in it. They're just lying. They just made it up because they don't know. I'm not saying I know either. But if that was the case, then all of the planetary system would not be moving in the same direction at same speed, would it? Have you ever tried breaking something? It doesn't just break and fall symmetrically. Well, this is symmetrical. So there is much more to it than that. And that symmetry is what brings in to us. And for the lack of it, how do we go around the lack of it? Imagine here a situation in this particular instance that we had a look earlier, where the sun and the moon are being hidden. The sun, especially on the solar eclipse, the sun is hidden. It has caused that problem. It has caused that situation whereupon the confidence is not there in that person. The friendship breaks up. Well, we need that extra sun rays. We need that extra light within us. Have you think about a thing where a lot of people, or the gemologists will tell you, wear a diamond, wear this, wear that. Diamond is a sun representation. So if you wore a diamond, let's say, on a finger, the prism of it, the upper crust of the diamond is fine. That gathers in all the rays. The bottom is pointed. The bottom of the prism is pointed. And the right bottom, unlike most rings which have these diamonds or a pearl or anything else embedded within the ring, the bottom part of it is cut off. It's basically the gold or the silver or platinum, whatever you like to put it, is sealed, is surrounding and holding that particular gem. So in this case, a diamond is surrounding and holding it, not from the bottom, so that the bottom end of it is actually touching your skin. So the extra energy, extra rays required in the body from the sun to overcome the lack of, because of, at the time of your birth, being the solar eclipse, is gained, not at a fantastic speed, but if you didn't have anything, then it wouldn't be getting in at all. Here, a little bit more concentration is coming in, which then creates the mental attitude differently. Your thought processes change. Many things change within your body, and that can create the environment whereupon you are therefore more confident than before. We could change our destiny, but we can only change our destiny if we know how. A managing director, you hear a lot of people sometimes say, I used to be a poor person and I'm now a managing director, or I used to be just a minicab driver, or anybody else for that matter, or a worker like you and I. But suddenly that person has become somebody. What do you think that caused it? Because the opportunity in the capitalist world are not that many. In the capitalist world, you have to have the power, you have to have the money in order to get somewhere. And money attracts money. But if you and I don't have money, where do we go? Well, we've got to change our way of life. We've got to change our destiny. We've got to seek that help from somebody. If you're ill, you will go to a doctor. If there is a legal problem, you will go to a solicitor. This is the issue that is covering your life. And therefore, it is important that a qualified astrologer looks at you and gives you that direction, helps you move in that direction, so that you're just not sitting there and thinking, I don't know. I just can't seem to get anything right. I can't get a job. There's lots and lots of people lately, in the last 2 sessions of Parliament, what's happened? Young people are not getting jobs. Well, if all of those young people are not getting jobs, what's stopping them getting on and doing something of their own accord? Because they don't have the know-how. Because they don't have that experience and knowledge behind them that puts them on the right track. Well, perhaps if somebody did do something to help them put on the right track, surely they will. Organizations like Youth Club, where you go along, you learn a little bit and say, right, okay, that's what I studied, that's what I want to get to, but here is a way forward. I can do this bit, I'll put it on my CV, and then move on to the other bit, eventually get to what I want to do. But not everybody is privileged to go to youth clubs. Not everybody is privileged to go to some people just don't want to go anywhere. They want it in their plates. Well, so you do have to do something. But what you need to do and what you should or ought to do, I'm not saying every single time every one of you will get there. But at least you tried. It's taking part that matters, not winning. Take the exams for that matter. Let's take an exam situation. There is 15% that will fail, and there's 15% that will get the top marks, but invariably the 70% are in between, the average. When you look for a partner, you look at I want to find somebody who is extremely good. The guy goes along and says, well, I'm going to find the most beautiful woman. She knows she's beautiful. Are you going to be able to handle her is the question. But if you said, right, okay, let's go for an average individual, you're more likely to sustain your partnership. Similarly, you're more likely to sustain your abilities if a direction is handed to you. That's what horoscope does to you. If you are in a partnership for a very, very long time, and I spoke about partnership earlier, but here's another bit to think about. I ask this to a lot of people. I ask them one question. When's the last time you went out with your partner in a coffee house? Or for a tea or whatever you're drinking, But when's the last time you two went out for that half an hour? Because don't forget, if you go to a coffee house, get yourself a cup of coffee, sit down, you only got that half an hour, maximum 45 minutes. And if you're still sitting there with the original 1 cup of coffee, they're going to turn around. The waiter is going to turn around. Would you like some more coffee, please? They turn around and no, thank you. I'm just sitting here waiting for just talking, They need spaces for other people to come in. So you've only got that half an hour. Crying out loud. Go out for a coffee once a week. Try with once a month if times are hard, and then build it up to once a week. Or every time something good happens, every time you get a wage packet, go for a cup of coffee. That is when you discuss all your problems that you would otherwise talk in the house. Because when you're talking in the house, you're not talking, you are shouting. You're shouting from the top of your head. Why are you shouting? What's your problem? They're only close to you. I mean, you shout loud enough so that the next door neighbor and the neighbor after that can hear you. Happens on my street. So I'm sure it happens on your street. Maybe it's you. Go to a coffee house. Talk it through. You can't shout there because everybody else will have a look at you, won't you? No, you don't want that. You can't fight there because the police will come in. The only thing you can do is talk. And when you finish with that, when you finish with your coffee, when you finish with your half an hour, and you've discussed the issues that you wanted to, a shake hand, get up, a shake hand. Don't do like what a lot of people do, where they leave their cups of coffee there on the table. No, take it back to where you got it from, to the counter, and say, thank you very much. All right? With your partner, shake hand, a big cuddle, come out. Fantastic. Friendship. Let's say you go back there in a fortnight's time, or a month's time, hopefully in a week's time. So don't go back to when we met. You were like this. This history, you moved on. From the last week or the last time you were in the coffee house to next time or to today that you're in the coffee house, in between, what are your problems? Sort it out. Talk it through. Clear it. There's no such thing as I don't like you. No. There is no such thing as I don't like you. Because if the person was unlikable, he or she would not have any friends at all. He or she would not be communicating with anybody at all. It's one or two elements of that individual is what you do not like. Well, talk it through. How can we get around it? If we cannot get around it ourselves, can we get help? Make a note. Get help. Now, having done that, settled. Only from last time to this time. Or things that have been left on the burner somewhere, has been brewing up, has now come up in your mind, which didn't come before. Fine, bring it up. Talk it through. But tell them, I'm not saying this because I don't want to go past last time, but this is important for me. Make it obvious. Make it known that you're aware that you are not going to be talking about things gone in the history. Now, believe me, do you know what happens? Like it does with me and my wife. We go in that coffee house, we sit there, and we don't have anything to argue. We talk normal things. I take my reading book with me, I take my literature with me, sometimes I take my laptop with me. She has got her things. And we communicate where necessary, otherwise we catch up on what is important to us. Like for me, for the last 3 weeks since I know that this is going to be my first show, I've been spending time on this. That doesn't mean I'm neglecting anybody around me. Don't neglect. Do not neglect. I haven't got time. Let me tell you a little story about time. Speaking of which, we've got 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, I'm going to tell you a little story. Did you know that in the ancient, very, very, very ancient times, if you read the Bible, if you read the Quran, if you read the Gita, if you read lots of other, I have read all 22 of the religions known on this earth. I looked up through the internet and I found 22 mainstream religions, and I've read all of them all. May not be all up there, but if and when time comes, I know which book to get out and say, look, that's what's written, not what you're saying. So, in the olden days, very, very olden days, people used to live 100,000 years. And they used to have to meditate for a prolonged period. And I'm sure you've heard this. And they used to say, like, we need to please God in order that we can have a better life. We can do something. But then they went up to God and said, you know, God, we spent the best part of our time trying to please you. We haven't got much time left for us. So God turns around and says, I'll tell you what, I'll make it easy for you. Create a fire and think about me in that whilst the fire is still going on. And nothing else. And let us say that therefore that is going to take lesser time than meditating for a very long time. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 0 off. So your life is going to be 10,000 years. So I said, okay, great. So they went away and they started these fires, and they used to think about God in the time when the fire was on. But mind is one of those things that cannot be held in one place. You know, you're listening to me, you're doing it, and your mind is working on something else right now as well whilst listening to me. And I am saying to you, no, only listen to me. It's not possible. Because in your mind you have got your holidays to book, you have got, you know, time is coming on and says, right, time to cook, and time to do this, or time to, and plenty of other things going through your mind. Mind is like wind, you cannot get hold of it. If you try to get hold of wind, you know, you just be going like this without anything coming in your hand. Mind is like that. So they turn around and says, well, God, you know, there's a problem here, because we cannot think about you all the time during the time that this fire goes on. So I think the idea wasn't very good. So can you please, God, do something about it? And God says, there's no pleasing, is there? I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you something nicer to do. It says, what you do is you do a charitable act. Do a charitable act. But to do that, you won't need as much time, so I'm going to take 1 more 0 off. Now this is the time around when the Bible was first written out, because if you read the beginning of the Bible, it will tell you Moses lived just about 1,000 years, and somebody else lived 1,000 years, and they lived 1,000. It tells you all the way through. If you look at the Old Testament, it tells you lots of it. Lots of people were living to around 1,000 years. So this is 1,000 years. What you need to do in that time is just do charitable acts. That's simple. What kind of charity and how much charity? And people started to do charitable acts, and it carried on and on and on. And I said, God, this is not working. Because all the money that we earn, all the things that we do, all the time that we spend, all we're doing is charity. And nothing else. Can you do something simple? So he turns around to her and says, okay, I'm going to do one other thing for you. Reduce that. Reduce that down to just once a day, remember me. But because you only have to do that, I will reduce your life further and take one more zero off. So it's 100 years of life that you live. Be honest. Do you really remember God once a day? Or you turn around and say, I don't believe in him. Think about it. Alright? Now, if that carries on, and you have no commitment, you have no idea of destiny, you do not believe in the very existence of yourself, because that's what God is, your own existence. And I'll talk about this in time to come when we talk more on horoscopes. We are not going anywhere. We're always blaming other people. And when we blame people, do you know what happens? That finger is pointing at the person we're blaming, forgetting that the other three fingers are pointing directly at you. So when you blame a person once, you are at fault 3 times. Is that what you want? I rest my case. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been a wonderful audience, and I thank you very much for listening to me. You have been listening to Hari, spelled H-A-R-I, from Inclusive FM. Please remember, you can mail me, or you can send a Twitter, or you can contact us on Facebook. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful week. I shall see you next Monday.
Away, talking each and every day. Soon as awake, and no mistake, it takes no delay. Hooked with one look. All the fellas say word, no book for a lifetime. Long-term sentence, that not hinting. When I said I'm hooked, I guess I'm in some call it a sin. But then again, oh well, you got me under your spell. Under your spell. Right, this is the Hear No Evil special revival.